Welcome, everybody, to The Calling, our first responder podcast, coming to you from Sober Life Studios and brought to you by One Brother, One Sister. I'm your host, Scott Jones. Thanks for joining us. And, if you're catching the recording of this show, please remember, put some comments in there. We read the comments. It helps us. If you got any questions you have for any of our guests or for us, or if you have a suggestion of something you'd like us to talk about here on The Calling, please put it in the comments and let us know. And, of course, share this with your friends. But we have a great guest. This is somebody, I guess I've known you about a year now, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
We first met at a One Brother, One Sister event for event interventionist training at Miami Gardens PD.
That's right. You snuck out of your area and came over to the other place.
Yeah.
That's right. This is Ivan Osores.
Yes, sir.
Osores, and you are a captain at Pinecrest Police Department. And you've been with them for how long now?
I've been there for 15 years. I got there as an officer from Titusville Police Department. While there, I worked on patrol, became a sergeant, did crime scene stuff, then lieutenant and captain. So now I oversee the administrative division.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you don't have to go out and do any work anymore? I'm just kidding. That's what they're all saying, right?
I know. No, there's a lot of work inside of the building, believe it or not.
That administrative stuff is worse, isn't it?
Yeah. So we have like property records, special events, and although we're in a smaller department in comparison to other agencies here in Miami-Dade County, we have our call volume and all the administrative stuff. We're a duly accredited agency, so we're living up to a lot of high standards.
People probably have no clue, Ivan, just how much paperwork is involved in a police department,
right, and
how much administrative BS you got to do and red tape and all this stuff. I mean, this is like full time. You could be at a desk full time and just keep going and going, right?
Sure. Not only me, but several people that work with me are at a desk full time, just shuffling paper, making sure we have all the documentation in order. So it's endless.
It's endless, of course. It's like any other business, I guess, because it is, at the end of the day, you're managing a staff. You have a job to complete. It's something you have to do.
That's right.
But that's where it kind of ends, because now your job is about there as being a police officer. First of all, you have the terrible distinction of whatever happens to any police officer anywhere gets dumped on you. Which means if one police officer does something bad halfway across the country, all of a sudden every police officer is bad. You've been dealing with that kind of thing, haven't you, over the last, couple decades?
Sure, and it seems like with the advent of social media and live broadcasting, a lot of those bad stories, if you will, seem to get national attention quicker than ever before.
Yeah.
And
the judgment comes with that because it's not a full report on it. You're getting your piece, people make a judgment, and then we live by those judgments.
Right. And I mean, I don't want to overgeneralize and say that all of these clips are the same. However, they are normally sent off very quickly, limited portions of not all the facts are present at the time. So, people can rush to judgment.
Absolutely. And that makes it difficult. Because now you've got to go out and do it. And let's preface this by saying, in every profession, whether it's police, fire, insurance sales,
right,
you got good eggs and bad eggs.
Sure.
And there's really very few bad eggs, but they get all the attention. So, and in your line, it's even worse because now you got to go out there and deal with the prejudice that's created by that and the animosity.
Right.
How hard is that to do? I mean, to strap on each day and go out and you're like, but I'm the good guy. I'm doing my best. But you got to live with those judgments. How hard is that?
Hard, I would say, is an understatement, right? I mean, a lot of us internalize and put a lot of added pressure on ourselves. However, the community at times can be very vocal. They will let you know that they're disappointed, not pleased with your performance.
Yeah.
And they are, and rightfully so sometimes, right? This is how they see the world. And it is our job to find ways to struggle with this negative publicity, if you will, and let the people know that I'm a human being. I have a family. I have children. I care for my fellow human beings, other human beings. So it is a task that happens every day. And it happens sometimes within the PD and oftentimes with members of the community.
Wow. Now, back in the old days, I'm saying old days back when I was a kid,
In the old
so
days.
it's 1,000 years ago. We had things like we had, officers on patrol that would walk the streets and get to know all the businesses, and they get to know the families, and we'd have them coming into the schools. We had officer friendly. We had all these different programs that were just, and it felt like they were more part of the community. And it seems like we drifted away from that for a period of time. Did we? Or is it just my perception of it?
I would say that some of it is your perception. Unfortunately, in Pinecrest, in the village of Pinecrest, we've maintained a real neighborhood feel to our police department. We work closely with our community. We host several events where we engage with the residents and just with members from the community at large, local businesses. Our officers do park and walk details, checking out at parks, making contact with residents. Now, some of it might be because our call volume might be slightly reduced just because of our size.
Right.
Right. So we have a little extra time, if you will. And from the top down in our agency, from the chief down, there is a community-centric approach to law enforcement.
Right.
We have a very active community resource team that is attending events not only within the village of Pinecrest, but throughout Miami-Dade County as well. Humanizing police officers, showing them that these are men and women, just like your mom, your dad, and family members who are engaged in this profession, and we care. We honestly care about the community.
And that relationship is almost more important than the job you're doing, because without that relationship, you can't do your job.
100%. If there isn't trust,
yeah,
everything else, it will be nearly impossible to accomplish. And remember, trust is one of those things that it's hard to earn and yet very quick to lose. So we always have to work carefully to maintain that level of trust with the community so that they know that they can rely on us.
And certainly you're right. I mean, it's a little bit different when you have a smaller community or when you call it a town, and it's that, you get into some of the big cities. I mean, I know that, officers in New York City or Atlanta or in Detroit or in even Miami, parts of Miami, that's not as hard. It's not as easy to keep that community connection because there is such a high volume and there is so much going on. So that takes a real toll on police officers.
Right.
Even if you do have that nice community that you guys have built, you still have those times, those days when things go south, and it takes a real toll on police officers. So now we've got the stress of going out there and maintaining a good posture for the community. But what about taking care of yourself? How important has that become now?
Right. That's a super important topic, right? I would say that, and the numbers don't lie, nationally, you can see that first responders are disproportionately affected by suicide, divorce, substance use, and other
trauma,
trauma, heart conditions, digestive problems. So the job is taxing physically, emotionally, spiritually on a lot of people. And we're certainly dealing with that locally and at a county level. And I think now it's a nationwide awareness that this is something that needs to be addressed. And we're doing it.
And this is this has been going on since the beginning of time. I mean, since some caveman grabbed a stick and said, "I'm the cop," there's been stressors. Right. But it's not until recently, the saying recently is like the last 2 decades or so, that we've actually started to talk about it more openly and honestly about the trauma, the cumulative trauma that you deal with, and needed levels of self-care. So are you seeing like this happening? Like, are people grabbing onto this, or is there still some old school, like, I'll be fine, I'll go home, I'll drink a beer, I'm good? Are people starting to accept having to take care of themselves?
I would say that it seems like it is gaining traction, definitely. Mm-hmm. From folks that have been in the profession much longer than I have, and I've been in it for 15 years. I'm 48 years old. I believe that I was towards the tail end of the suck it up mindset, right, if you will. Right. Not talking about your feelings, maybe meeting up after work for some adult beverages.
Yeah.
Right. So that seemed to have been
was the therapy at the time.
That was
right?
part of the therapy at the time. But I would say now, as evidenced by the decisions made by, for example, the Miami-Dade Association's chief of police. They headed up at that time by Chief Landa, who's now retired, the decision to put together and assemble a Miami-Dade County multi-agency peer support team that just went live this year. One that I'm a member of myself, with 12 or 13 other individuals, including some chaplains from 7 or 8 different agencies here in Miami-Dade County. So they saw the need, and they saw the advantage of having somebody from the profession reaching out, listening compassionately, without judging, to our coworkers, and opening up that space for judgment-free conversation. That is such a great starting point for all of us.
And you've gone beyond. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to be a peer support. It's a buddy system. You got a problem, go talk to your buddy. And that's, you guys going beyond that. It's, you got real trainings going on. You're really trying to equip people with everything they need. The funny thing is you're trained for how long to be equipped to go out on the streets, but nobody's trained to be equipped to have to deal with what happens when you get off the street, when you come back and you're in the locker room and what happens. Right. So now you're doing that.
Right. I cannot speak for the culture of all police departments. I am familiar with some, and I'll tell you, when we have our meetings, we are sharing very similar stories from small agencies to large agencies. But what I can tell you is that all of our officers, for example, at Pinecrest Police Department, have received CIT training, right? So the crisis intervention training.
Right.
Now, for the peer support team, all of us received an additional 40 hours of training through Arch Support for peer support practices. So this team of professionals has additional training to speak to and listen compassionately to our peers. We have a 24-hour-a-day phone number where officers will be able to reach us. And if we feel the need that this is something that needs to be referred out to us for further treatment, if you will, maybe more intensive clinical treatment, we can do that at that time. But we're there to walk alongside the officer that might be feeling overwhelmed or challenged for personal, financial, emotional, professional reasons. And they might not feel comfortable speaking to somebody else, and they might find comfort speaking with somebody who knows the challenges that they're facing. And that's where this team comes into play.
I'm going to hit you with the big word that's been a problem for forever: stigma. People don't want to speak up. They don't want to be labeled. They don't want people to look at them differently. I don't want to, if admit that I'm having a struggle in this area, I don't want to be pulled out of the car. I don't want to be pulled off my duties. Is that like one of the battles that you really are dealing with a lot with this stuff?
Yeah, I would say that it has been a battle, maybe generationally speaking, for more seasoned officers. That seems to typically take a longer time to break that ice, to make a connection.
Well, they've been going in the other direction for so long.
For very long, right. But we meet people where they're at. And this is a big spectrum. Some people are further along than others. And dealing with that stigma, we're addressing it, for example, in shows such as your own, right here, right now. We are destigmatizing mental wellness, brain health. We talk about everything else. We talk about a good diet, working out, finances, relationship issues. And a lot of times we feel like it's taboo to talk about our mental health. And we all struggle at some point. Yeah. And it's okay to struggle. And our job is to help people struggle well, and that they have the right and they deserve to live fulfilling lives.
With first responders, though, I mean, there's a little difference. You're experiencing things that everybody else experiences. It's probably amplified in some situations because of violence or possible fear of death and things like that. Like one of the things that you have to deal with, military, firefighters, police officers, is that you could be in the middle of a situation and you can't just walk away and like take a breath sometimes. Sometimes you just got to suck it up and get through that situation. And then, do you think that plays a part in why it builds up so badly? Is that you can't, like, I'm in the middle of a meeting for business and I'm starting to get like a little stressed. I can get up and excuse myself.
Right.
You can't do that when you're dealing with a bank robbery. You can't say, listen, guys, would you just hold still for a minute? I need to go get a breath, right? You're not allowed to do that. That's this very particular thing. Is that why maybe talking to each other is so important? Because you understand those things?
Yeah, definitely. At times it's hard. The community residents might not understand that. They might expect us to be robotic, extremely well trained, and have zero emotions during high stress. And that's simply not true. We are human. We have feelings. We respond to the same stressors like all other human beings.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that what we can offer and have offered sometimes is simply telling officers what physical response they're going to feel when they're under stress, either elevated heart rate, difficulty breathing, loss of fine motor skills, making them aware of some of the symptoms that they might have, and offer them something like good meditation techniques, and breathing techniques that can be used while you're en route to an emergency call, or when you realize that the call that you were on, that domestic call, has become violent, or now a weapon has been introduced, and quick ways to settle yourself down as you move forward through this very difficult, challenging situation. And officers do this on a daily basis throughout the country.
You made such a great point that you're not robotic. And one of the reasons that I think people you see a lot of these complaints about officers is like, oh, they don't care or anything. Well, don't treat them like they're robots. If you want them to be human, then treat them like they're human, and they can be human. And it's all that. And I love this idea of you're arming them to go out so that when that fight or flight kicks in, or the stress or anxiety kicks in, you know how to use your breath.
Right.
You know, you're trained in using a service weapon when you need to use it. You should also be trained in using your own body's responses to deal with that.
Yes. And we are introducing that into training. Like you said, officers receive training on how to drive their emergency patrol cars, how to use their firearms, less than lethal, taser, pepper spray. I mean, we have training for almost all of our situations. And luckily now for us, we are receiving more and more training about our physical response to stress. One of these that's been introduced county-wide here was training through Boulder Crest, and the partnership that we've created between our Miami-Dade multi-agency regional peer support team and Boulder Crest emphasizes that message. These are techniques that we can use to help calm down our parasympathetic, our fight or flight response.
Absolutely. You know, and it's really great to see this happening. Now, I don't want you to give me any names, and it's not appropriate for you to do that, but have there been times when you've seen these practices that you're putting into place, or that, not saying you specifically, but your department and other departments are putting into place? Have you had moments where you said, wow, that was really cool to see that happen and to see that person get the help they needed? Or have you had those moments where you've said, wow, this is why it's working, right?
Right. Yeah. Honestly, it happens very often in emergency situations and just routine calls. I remember that one of the components of our One Brother, One Sister event interventionist training was about body language and mirroring and putting people at ease with the way we position ourselves. And he
passed the course, by the way, people. He did good.
And that goes into de-escalation, which officers have been using extensively, and understanding where the other person is coming from, their perspective. Sometimes if you're, I hate to use this, but I'm going to anyway. If you're trained to be a hammer, the only thing you know how to do is to be a hammer, is to hammer a nail into place.
Yeah.
But the truth is that officers have to be so much more well-rounded.
Yeah.
And it is about sympathetic listening, compassionately, and not necessarily offering advice at every time. We're not here to fix everybody's problems and tell them how they should live. It's just listening to that person where they're at that moment. They're struggling with something, and we have an obligation to help them at that moment and help them find solutions to their problems themselves.
If there's not a better message for today, this is a good one, is, Ivan, you put it great. Every day you go out, you're not just like a law enforcer. That's a small part of your job.
Right.
You're a negotiator. You're pretty much like a friend in need, or a friend in need when somebody needs somebody. You're a community member. you're a concerned citizen yourself. You have to fill all of these roles, and you don't even know which ones you have to fill until you show up, right?
Right.
But it's rarely is it just be a cop,
Right.
right? So you have to be prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, if you will, for all of these things.
Right.
And I'm glad to see that we're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
I also noticed that there's a big focus on physical fitness and nutrition as well now too, right?
That's right. That's right. Some departments have incorporated that into the officers' work schedule. They allow officers to work out on duty. We've brought nutritionists to the department to teach people, remind people about eating healthy. As a matter of fact, at the Village of Pinecrest, we offer a active shooter training, civilian response to active shooter events. And at the beginning of that course, we tell them that the likelihood of them being killed at a active shooter event are very, very low. And if we really were here to deal with life-saving, we would deal with the things that are really killing a great deal of Americans in our country, which include cancer, diabetes, and heart problems, right? So that plays into every officer's life. Taking care of your health, eating correctly, and managing your stress, self-regulation.
You also have another unfortunate side effect of being a police officer, which is when you're on duty, you don't get to have an opinion. You have to be, it's like when you're out in the community, you can't go out there and say, well, I believe in this and I believe in that. You've got to be open to everything, and you've got to be kind of like very neutral with a lot of things. Is that difficult sometimes? Because there's all the arguments about gun control versus arming more people. There's arguments about everybody's got their own, and even political ideas.
Right.
You have to table all that when you go out there, because the last thing you want to do is get into a situation where you're having a political argument with somebody when you're supposed to be doing something else, right?
Yeah, right. It's really complex, right?
Yeah.
Not only do we have to suppress, if you will, our personal beliefs, but we have to acknowledge where that other person is coming from, and be as tolerant as possible. And remember that we don't necessarily only represent ourselves, but since we're wearing a uniform, at times our behavior now becomes the behavior or culture of our department, of law enforcement as a profession as a whole. So we have to be very careful. We are all ambassadors for law enforcement professionals throughout the country.
You're a smart guy. You could probably do anything. Why do this? I mean, is there some good story behind why you became a police officer? Weren't expecting
that.
Right.
I was not expecting that question. The good story, like the podcast is titled "The Calling," right? I think a lot of people would say that this job, something about this profession, this career, speaks to people, speaks to certain people, right? There was some of that for me. I would say initially I was in the Air Force. I joined I encountered law enforcement through the Air Force, if you will. I initially had wanted to become an air traffic controller.
Wow, talking about stress.
Right, I know, talking about stress. However, because of an issue I had with depth perception, I was not able to work that job. So
it's probably good. It's probably
good. And then the other thing that I was attractive to me was law enforcement. I'd actually done a ride along before joining the Air Force, and I really liked that job. And I think even the show Cops had some influence over me.
Sure, why not?
Right?
That's no shame in that.
No shame in that, right? So yeah, that was a choice I made 1998. What is that? 25 years ago. And the job has been very good to me. I've met and worked with outstanding people throughout this entire time, from chiefs down to officers. And I am very optimistic about the direction that law enforcement is headed. I am really pleased to see how responsive we've been to the community and how active the community has been in telling us what they expect from us as professionals as well. And that's why it's so important for us to work closer than ever with our community members because they are the client. These are the people that we serve. So I'm sure we're going to continue doing it honorably, with love and compassion.
That's fantastic. Now, if somebody's watching this and they're like, they want to show their appreciation. They want to do something. What is something a community member can do that would be helpful? Or I don't know if it's a donation or if there's just something they can do to help you or to show their appreciation for what you have to do.
Well, I'm sure different agencies have different organizations that they
Sure.
work with. One that comes to mind for us, and one that I've been contributing since I started in law enforcement, is the Police Officers Assistance Trust, POT. The people can donate money that way. I have it deducted out of my paycheck biweekly. Heck, go to your local police department. Go speak to an officer. Do a ride along. Go to all of these events. Agencies more than ever are active on social media. Follow them on social media. See where they're at. Take time, 5 minutes of your time, and speak with an officer. It happens to me a lot. People come up to me. They're curious about the job. A lot of them are very thankful. They literally say, "Thank you for your service." It's something that I experienced in the military and as a police officer,
Which is fantastic.
It's super rewarding. I would say that right there is extremely rewarding. So heck, go tell a cop, go tell an officer, "Thank you for your service." That means the world to us.
Is cop an offensive term, or is that okay?
I think with the right tone, it's okay.
Yeah, in the right tone.
Right.
Okay, I guess, because when we're saying cops, it's just like a short way of saying police officer. Is like
right.
officer.
I mean, officers is probably the preferred.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
No, but I thank them. And everybody's got this. They like to bitch and moan. People like to. They're like, this is wrong and that's wrong, and they're doing all, but they're not doing the job. Show up, get in the academy, strap on, do the job. Then we're expecting you to do the job, but you need our support to do that as well.
Right. Departments seem to be hiring all year long. We're currently hiring for some positions. We're offering great starting salary. I believe we're at 66,000 approximately starting.
Wow.
Paid holidays, Florida retirement system. So the Village of Pinecrest is hiring. We're looking for exceptionally well-qualified candidates to join our force. But like you said, if you want to make a change, you want to be a part of law enforcement, instead of just talking about it, come join us. Come be a part of this experience.
And certainly support the events you have and the benefits that you do and different things. Pay attention to what's going on, right? Pay attention. Watch the websites to see what events are happening and be there, right?
Right. Get engaged. Get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if somebody wants to, like, you didn't set out, you went into the military and then kind of ended up there with the police, but somebody's thinking about it. What's a good way to go kind of learn more about it? Like, say there's somebody who's maybe getting out of high school or getting out of college, and they're saying, "I'd like to do this, but I don't know." How do they talk to somebody about it?
Right. I would say that the traditional way of doing it is still doing a ride along. So you can visit a department. Most of them are doing ride alongs again. I think because of COVID, we had stopped for a while.
Well, sure, yeah.
But come down to the station, fill out some paperwork, and do a ride along. Ride with an officer, respond to some calls. You spend 4 hours, pick their brain, get their take on it, and also be selective as far as what department you want to be a part of. Remember, if you're interested in specialized units, you might want to obviously do your homework. Make sure that if you want to be in Marine Patrol, go to a department that has Marine Patrol.
You also
SWAT.
have dispatch and different things like that. There's a lot of different areas, right?
Absolutely. We have victim services coordinators. We have crime scene technicians. It's a very diverse and rich place to work, and there's something for everyone there. So go online. Officers, website, police departments are posting most of their information, if not all of their information, online. It's readily accessible to us like never before.
In 15 years, you've had good days and bad days. You've had very difficult times with some things that happen. When your head hits the pillow at night, do you ever say, "Why the hell am I doing this?"
Oh, sure. I wouldn't be human if I wouldn't have had those thoughts before. I've thought about doing something different.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I've stuck it out, like any other relationship, sometimes, or stressors, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is a professional relationship, my commitment with my department and the community. If I were to get up and run at every time there was some type of adversity, I would not grow from it. So, and that you can apply that to school, to romantic relationships, family relationships. When everything at some point in time, things will get difficult. How you navigate those times is going to typically build you into a stronger person. And if you avoid that conflict, if you avoid that adversity, you've just lost a growth opportunity, a moment of for growth. So I am very glad that I had supporting people that encouraged me to keep going despite whatever adversity I was facing at the time. And
now with these programs, you could talk about those. When you have those moments, you could say, oh man, I just really want to quit, but you could say it out loud, talk to people, and they could say, yeah, I felt that way last night. No,
right.
I don't. And you can deal with it.
Right.
Because if you wait long enough, you wait 24 hours, something's going to happen where you're going to say, that's why I do this.
Right. And it's good to talk to somebody who has some training, right?
Yeah,
because if you have a friend that you confide in, but he gives you horrible advice, it might be counterproductive, right? So that's a nice thing with for example, like the peer support team, which we have a clinical director, Habsi Kaba. We have other people that are involved that are giving us good guidance, like Mario Gonzalez, George D'Alessandro. I don't want to mention all the names here, but these are people that really need to be deserve credit, because in our training, that is one of those things that it is listening without judging and without offering advice. It sounds easy, but we love, especially in law enforcement, if you will, to fix people's problems, right? And sometimes it's like, just listen.
Absolutely.
And care.
Absolutely.
And that's probably at the center of everything we do now. Is listen. Shut up and listen.
Listen to understand, not to fix. Right. I got it. Before we wrap up, there's been a common theme through all of this, and you show it when you talk, and the pride in your voice, and in how you feel about the people. This isn't just the people you work with. In law enforcement, it becomes something different. It's like, in military, they become your band of brothers, and this is like family. These people that wear the badge and that represent your community. You guys care about each other, don't you?
Right. Yeah. It isn't always perfect, but
what family is?
But no family is perfect. That's right.
Yeah.
But we have a profession that brings us together with a common purpose, a sense of purpose, a mission, and this responsibility and duty to serve under what at times are life-threatening situations. That stress brings people together in a way that most other professions don't bring people together. And that's what that creates this bond that's very strong. And there's good and bad to it.
Yeah.
There's good and bad to it. And it is our job as leaders in this profession to lead and guide towards the positive and make the most of this. This is something that you're a law enforcement officer 24/7. In certain capacities, you're on call 24/7.
Yes.
And it is a taxing job, but it is extremely rewarding. It is an extremely rewarding profession.
Well, speaking for our community, we appreciate you. We appreciate everything you do. We've met the people of Pinecrest, and they're quality people, great people, great sense of humor, and just fun to be around. Good people, and it's so nice to have that. Holidays are coming up, and we're going to wrap up the show. But any message you want to send out there? I mean, listen, it's this time of year. People are stressed. People are rushing. People are drinking too much and driving. There's so much going on and so much opportunity that people can really screw up what should be a great time of year. What do you want to share with people?
Yeah, definitely. Right. So holiday seasons don't mean the same thing for everyone. Sometimes these are good times for certain people, and it can be very lonely, depressing times for others. So let's make sure that we're all careful, respectful, and dealing with one another. Plan accordingly so you're not rushing, trying to get 50 things done in one day, especially in Miami traffic, South Florida traffic. And be caring and compassionate with one another. Remember that although your intentions are good, there's people out there, unfortunately, that are looking at ways to victimize you. So make sure that if you are shopping for gifts this holiday season, make sure you store them in a safe place. Don't leave them in plain sight in your vehicle. Situational awareness. Be aware of what's going on around you. Get off your phone for a minute when you're walking on the street, when you're walking in the mall. All right. Be careful about your identity thieves, your credit cards, where you use them, at gas stations, at different places of business. Be aware of that. Make sure you lock your cars. I know you're bringing packages in and out of the car, groceries. We all have very busy lives. Take the keys out of your car. Bring them inside with you. Be aware of yourself. Watch out for your neighbors. If you see suspicious, if you see something, say something. Call the non-emergency line of your local police department. I hear from people saying, well, I didn't want to bother you. I know you guys have very important things going on other than me. Every call is important for us. Give us a call on the non-emergency line. An officer is going to gladly go out there and investigate further. So that kind of sums it up. There's a lot going on, but if I could narrow it down to like a top 3, I would say that was it.
That's good. It's just common sense, really, and a lot of that. Being aware. I love the idea, just put the phone away and pay attention to what's going on around you, especially when you're in crowds. Especially when you're in crowds. Most people who get robbed or things that happen to people are opportunity things. And if you don't give them the opportunity, it might not happen. So
exactly. So like we do see that a lot in our property crimes. People are leaving valuables in their vehicle in plain sight. A lot of these higher end vehicles that have electronic key fobs, when the door is unlocked, the side view mirrors are in the open configuration. So it basically broadcasts to car thieves that, hey, my car is unlocked.
Yeah.
Right. So those little things would probably make a huge difference.
It's either that or just buy an old 1981 Corolla and drive around in it. Nobody will bother with you. Ivan, thank you so much. We appreciate everything you do. I want to thank Ivan Osores from Pinecrest Police Department, Captain, and all of the people at Pinecrest. Great people, the job they're doing. And take a moment this holiday season, stop by your local police department, drop off some Christmas cookies, just stop in and say thank you for the job that you do, and find out maybe there's something. Maybe some of them are collecting toys or doing something. Get involved. Get involved. It's a tough time of the year to be alone. Check on your neighbors. Check on your friends as well. But with that, thank you for joining us right here on The Calling. We will catch you next time. Bye-bye.